start with introducing ourselves and also telling the audience where we are, because the fantastic thing with those online tools is that we are all in different places. And now together to serve this live talk for the audience, maybe we start with Arun. So Arun, tell us, where are you and how's going?
Yeah, things are pretty fine now. I am in my home in Coimbatore. That is where the film is also shot. So I am a little bit out of lockdown because the last 2-3 weeks has been a little okay here because Coimbatore is a green zone. So it's the restrictions are not very severe. So we get by okay for now.
Great, great. Mati, how about you?
Well, I'm based out of Chennai, actually, which is one of the cities in Tamil Nadu. We're about 7 hours, 8 hours from where Arun is. We've been in the lockdown. Yeah, unlike Arun, we're in the red zone. So the area that I live in is still in the red zone. So we haven't ventured out much, but it looks like things are moving back to normal. So things are feeling hopeful, even though there are difficulties that are looming. I'm sort of gearing to get out soon, which is why I have my window open and I'm hoping I can step out anytime.
Yeah, stay tuned. You might get some news on the call today. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, Samir, how about you?
So I as well am in the south, but I'm in a little enclave, which is an ex-French colony called Pondicherry, a little union territory. And interestingly, I'm in the orange zone. So between the red and the green.
Okay, that's my question. So, so what are the zones? What is it about? So you have like green and yellow and red, or what is it?
Yes, so it's in terms of the number of cases that they identify in those areas, and even amongst the green zones and the red zones and the orange zones, there are containment areas where the spread is larger than than maybe the small district next to it. But every little area in India has been categorized as per zone in terms of the number of cases that have been identified.
So I mean, just to add there, Stefan, India is such a huge country. It is divided into these zones, and every zone has its own management. And within there, where the number of cases is spreading too fast, they have containment zones there to take care of it. So that's how it's being managed at the moment. So a red zone means, the numbers are high, and then a lot of restrictions there. Green zone is like, it is still a case where people can still go out. So, and orange zone is somewhere in middle where Samir is sitting.
But everybody is confused.
Yeah, exactly.
But what does it mean for the daily life? So you're coming back to normal step by step, or what is the plan? Are there already?
Yeah, green zone is almost normal now because the institutions, schools, colleges, and government offices have not opened. But otherwise, private factories and private shops and all are open with certain restrictions, on number of people who can work and all that. But civilians can just move around freely. You don't need a pass to move within the green zone. So it's a little relaxed.
Stefan, the thing is that it's very different living in a city like Chennai, where Mati lives, and living in a bigger town like Coimbatore, which is also close to a city, and living in a smaller town like Pondicherry. Very different in terms of lifestyle and how people are getting out.
Exactly. And I think yesterday there was an announcement from the government as well, like from 1st of July, new ease out plans are coming out where restaurants can again open up, shopping malls can open up. So a lot of steps are being taken to normalize the situation in India at this stage. Yeah.
Understand. Okay, so coming back to the green zone, coming back to Arun. Nasir can start his work, correct? Or because you're in the green zone, he can open his shop.
Yeah, but textile shops can only open if they don't run AC, and if they can have only like half of their customers, 40% or 20% based on the restrictions. But this particular location that we shot the film, it's one of those crowded areas. It's not one of those neighborhoods where you find shopping malls or anything. You have a separate place in the city for that, where the upper class goes to shop. But the shop that Nasir works in, or the vicinity where he's actually from, is where the middle class and the lower middle class go to purchase clothes, and it's usually a little congested. So at the present time, even that place is in lockdown. It's in the heart of the city. So I don't think Nasir would go to work at this time.
Yeah.
Okay, Raman, you have a question for the film.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I mean, I'm surprised to see such a young people who are behind making such a mature movie. Yeah. So congratulations to all of you for making such a nice movie. Yeah. Well, Nasir, a movie which is very simple somewhere, but also very heart touching and thought provoking story. And it's based on the life of the main character, Nasir. So, I mean, what has been your motivation behind making this movie? What motivated you to take this topic and make a movie on that? Yeah.
Firstly, it was the short story, because the film is an adaptation of a short story in Tamil. So once I read the short story, I decided that someday I need to adapt it. But it was a certain incident in the year 2016 that I actually saw a group of extremists, right-wing extremists mobbing down on the streets and, breaking shops. And I saw a live mob in front of me, and that was kind of like a sign, I should actually go back to the story. And I went back to the short story and started, reading it closely. When I found that actually this is the time I should do the story, because the social reality around the country and also what I felt, personally happened in front of my eyes, kind of told me that here is a story which puts all of this in perspective in such a poignant way of not trying to actually talk about the political, blatantly on the face. It tries to tell the story of a man which at any point of time, because when the writer wrote it 20 years ago and I read it much later, and he used to work in a cloth store, himself when he was a small boy, that was in the 70s and 80s. So this story had the potential where the social is actually always, troubled, and how a person is actually is finally, kind of unplugged from such a reality, so I found that story to be a very touching tale of this person, and I thought I should make this now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think somewhere when such incidents happen, they are reported from a national point of view, or from a state point of view, or from a community point of view. But people do not get to see the story from an individual point of view. Yeah, a person, what are his beliefs? But does he really believe into those things, or is he simply getting impacted because of it? Right. So that's why I say it's a very mature movie from my point of view, and gives a very strong signal here. Yeah. No, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Stefan?
I have a question for Matti. So how you both find each other, Arun and you?
So that's interesting. So I actually watched his film at Mami, Shiva Puranam, his previous film. And I must admit, when I first watched it, actually we were going to watch Deepan, the film that was there, and there were no tickets there. And I just saw on the opposite thing, there was a Tamil film, it said Arun Karthik, and I was like, how? There's a Tamil film here, and how would I not know? And I must admit, I was very early on my journey in understanding these films. So I have to go see this. And I went there, and I must admit, there are a lot of things that I felt in the film, but I didn't understand. But there was definitely a fascination towards trying to understand the filmmaker and trying to see what they were trying to say. So I remember seeing Arun. I did not speak to him actually that day. I remember seeing him outside and speaking to a few others. I was like, oh, this is very interesting. And then somewhere along the line, I think there was an interest in producing. So I just messaged him cold out of Facebook, and I said, hey, I'm interested in producing. I don't know much about this, but I just thought I'll message you. And I just messaged him, and he said, okay. And Arun Singh was just come to Coimbatore though. So, and he asked me to come to Coimbatore. And I think there was where we understood. I drove down 8 hours, just went there a little before New Year's, and over there he was already staying in the location where he was planning to shoot. And it was also, I must admit, because of my privilege, never had access to that kind of a place. So staying there, eating there locally, seeing the people, I just knew that we were onto. I mean, he was onto something, and he made me read the story there in that room where it is. And then after that, he took me on a tour of the entire geography. And when you see the film, you know that it's from somebody who understands the geography of the place where you are. Because I think he just explained, okay, this is where the textile mercantile business is, and this is where certain issues have brewed in the past, and gave me the background. And I think it just sort of connected on that level. And I think that's when our journey started.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very funny. If you say you haven't had that much of experience, so what is your background then as a producer?
So I'm actually largely used to work in a lot of theater and performing arts. So I had a lot of experience producing there, and then I had a lot of experience producing a lot of online content. But online content actually over a period of time just made me very unhappy because you're making videos for the next viral, and there was somewhere a deeper need to like kind of like if I use the word trip on something that's a little more deeper and kind of understand that process. And I think that I sort of figured, okay, moving out of that, independent cinema offers that kind of liberty to to work on one film for about a couple of years that really understand everything around it. That was what I was seeking. I think that's where the transition happened. I was also knew that somewhere inside that when it came to co-productions, I would have something to contribute. I had a consulting career before and I'd worked with international clients, and I knew that I would be able to contribute. So I saw a greater contribution in a space like that than making viral videos. And I think that was the space with which done. So, and of course, I must say at the end of it, a lot of it is built on Arun's first film because he had his last film in Mommy, he had it at Rotterdam, and then it's sort of already, we had 30% of the access already in front of us. And it was to build on that foundation to make the film. So I learned a lot along the way.
Yeah, then it was how can I say, good fortune for you, Arun, to meet me, correct?
Yes, Stefan, because it's very, very hard to find a like-minded producer in my state. Because, of course, if you're lucky, you can find a good producer. But most of the films that our industry makes are popular films, and there are some fine producers there. But for the kind of work that I do, it is very difficult to find an independent producer who is very eager to understand this whole other kind of ecosystem, so which was not part of our ecosystem in the film industry in Chennai, because none of the producers had the experience of how to write to funds or how to kind of support a filmmaker right from pre-production, how to find other partners for the film. So these were all very new because our industry primarily works in private equity from one particular larger studio or one at the max another studio together. So it was very nice of Mathi to actually partner with me with a spirit that okay, like let us try and find partners for the film, because as the film started growing, I was staying in the location and I was writing the screenplay, and we were supported by Hubert Ball's script and project development grant. So once we received it, I kind of developed it further and then stayed for a little longer. So Mathi also was kind of reaching out to many people and trying to get partners, and that is when we met Samir in IFFR, because after we were invited for a Boost NL session in Cinemar. That is when we met Samir there, and Samir got to know about our pitch and everything. So he came and spoke to us, and Mathi and Samir kind of discussed proceedings as to how to become partners and work on this together. So it was very interesting and exciting at the same time for me to have producers who was very eager to get on this journey where you'll have to collaborate with the Dutch nationals and also South Indian and North Indian producers. So it was kind of exciting, and I'm glad that it worked well.
Yeah.
So I get it. So just one producer was not enough, Sarkar. No, tell us. So what was your role in the game, Samir?
So, well, of course, my first film I had financed completely myself, and I was in Rotterdam with this film called Jonaki, which was in a different space from this film, and I had actually very few production collaborators, and I was financing the film, and it was though Catherine Dussard was a part of it, there was no finance that came from Europe, and I was very keen to work on a film that had European funds and been trusted and stamped by a certain European institution, and Hubert Balls did that on Nasir. And when I read the script and I met, I was in Rotterdam for Jonaki, for the premiere of Jonaki, and somebody said to me that there is a guy that you might know because he has also worked in Pondicherry at some point, and then I suddenly meet Marty at this party, and he talks to me about the project. The next day I meet Arun and Mati, both of them, and I read the script right there. I mean, I sit on the table and I read the entire script, and there was a passion in the script, and you could feel the passion in the script. And then when Arun spoke, you could feel that passion, translated into the script by the director. And that's when I said that this is a good opportunity for me to get on to my next project, which is more of a collaboration than a one-man show. And it's again, every film becomes an experience. Every film becomes a different experience. So you never can call yourself experienced. It's strange. Because everything is always a new journey. So yeah.
Raman, you
And
want
this
to
is-
step in
yeah.
for the question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, Arun, question to you. I mean, you are the director
Yes,
and
Raman.
writer of this film. Yeah, so you directed this film, you wrote this film yourself. So is
Yeah.
this movie getting some inspiration from some real life incidents, or I mean, what is the connection of the movie with Coimbatore, and why did you choose Coimbatore itself?
So, since I was adapting the short story itself was set in Coimbatore. That is one of the reasons that I like the short story also, because all the streets and the shops and the details that were mentioned in the short story are things that I experienced also. Because the school that you see in the film is the same school that the short story writer studied also. He did not finish his schooling. He dropped out when he was in class 5 or 6. But then I also went to the same school, and that is where we ended up shooting for the film, where Nasir goes to drop lunch for the boss son. So right from the streets to how the shops would be and how these people would behave, and how the whole bustling atmosphere of the market and everything as described by the writer was kind of very relatable to me, because I had right from childhood known these spaces since my schooling was here. I am actually from a village which is 15-20 kilometers outside the city. We used to come to school, which my school was in the middle of the city. So I had a lot of friends from this particular area, a lot of merchants and their sons and all. They used to study here. So I kind of always had this interesting look of different diverse people, from the very market street studying in our school. So this relativity is what I kind of enjoyed also from that adapting the short story.
Yeah, no, I think one sees that passion when you are narrating this story through the visuals. I mean, somehow it comes out that the person who is actually shooting this knows this area very well. Yeah, that's the feeling that you get it, and you automatically start getting connected to the story there. So that's the feeling that one carries, and
Another
that's
important thing
amazing
was
part.
I felt that maybe understanding the space was not enough. Understanding in the sense as a visitor, because from my schooling days, I always have kind of passed these streets and I kind of walked through them and all of that. But when you want to make a movie, it's not just about your impression of the place. It's also about the gaze of the other, because you are dealing with a whole lot of community which is very volatile and who have been marginalized there and who have had a history of violence there. So especially if you're a person who doesn't belong to that community, you can't just show up there to make a film. So you have to apply yourself to the space also, like how you apply yourself to the story and start imagining the story in your way. You also apply yourself to the location, and that is when I figured that okay, this film I shouldn't be staying 15 or 20 kilometers away and kind of come and visit this set. I actually should live here so that I can talk to these people in real, get to know them in flesh and blood, and kind of understand which house would be the right place, or which street would be the right thing, and how to get the right access and permission for this, because that was also not easy.
Yeah, no, I mean, while we are talking, yes, Stefan.
Well, I have one question for Samir and Mati. So you met in Rotterdam for the first time, then agreed to do not in Rotterdam.
Actually, I let Samir do the second major part of the story, but the background is I used to work in Pondicherry, and I remember a very strapping good-looking man walked next to my cabin a few years then, was doing advertising and was doing something for the company I was consulting at, and it happened to be Samir, and we were Facebook friends then. Right, and I had liked Magic Hour Productions then on Facebook, and I remember I saw this at IFFR. I was like, "Hey, this is the man I met 6-7 years ago." So then at this party when we were drinking, I went up to Samir and said hello, and I let him take it from there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was. I mean, we had met in a very different context. And I was doing I used to do a lot of commercials before I went into independent filmmaking. But I think yes, we met and talked films for the first time in Rotterdam.
Yeah, so my goal was to the second part of the sentence should be about meeting again in Rotterdam with the festival entry, of Nasir. So can you tell us a little bit about that? How was it? Because it was also awarded in the end, but maybe you can tell us a little more detailed and give us an idea how you felt about it. And I think it must have been a big hello there.
I mean, what is amazing was how a small Tamil film like this, with seemingly a small a small setup, but a big subject, how it rung a bell with the Dutch audience. A huge success. I mean, every show, we had 8 shows actually. Two of them were press screenings, but the rest of the shows were not only houseful, but people stayed back for the Q&A. And the questions they asked were so interestingly pertinent that it really, it's not the size of film; it's really the subject of the film that hits the heart of the audience. Is what I realized.
And this subject, we initially had a lot of discussions, on how this subject would be received by people of different cultures. How would they understand the politics and all. And we also decided that we are not going to take the effort of trying to explain the politics inside the film to people who are not Indians or not from the South, or generally, who are from elsewhere, because we believe that the politics in the film is about life and the act of living, and every day. And in that is a language that people would understand. So let's keep it simple and not try to justify anybody's motive or our motive, even why this film, because why this film is good is the image and the sound, and people are going to feel it. So if you can translate your thought into the feeling, then the subject is actually felt by the audience. So we were actually quite pleased to find a Dutch audience and also people from different parts of Europe to actually relate to everything that we wanted to communicate through the image.
Yeah, so how was it for you then, Arun and Mati, because I think for you, Arun, it was the first time on a big festival then, correct? Well, with your own film.
No, I was in Rotterdam in 2016. That was my first time to a very big festival. So in 2016, I had my debut feature, Shiva Puranam, and then we've been coming back to Rotterdam during the pitching sessions for Cinemart and Boost NL. And it was every time you are in Rotterdam, it's very fun in the sense of knowing a lot of things in terms of how to kind of deal with a lot of funds, and how to kind of understand, like how do you even write an application for the fund, how do you talk to them. And then we watch a lot of films and we make it a point that we kind of plan our process, because we meet partners, and with partners what they do is they lay out a very clear plan as to what do you do in the next few months. When am I finishing my final draft, when is the producer going to start planning the pre-production and the production schedule. So all of this was also something that is very exciting to us. When we went back to Netherlands, we found the Dutch co-producers after pitching in one of the sessions in Boost NL. So our Dutch co-producers, Wrinkle Film. So once they came on board, they started a lot of planning sessions with us, and that was interesting. Mati, would you want to tell them on the?
Yeah. So what was fun was actually with respect to Wrinkle Film is that it was at Boost NL. Sort of raw and this sort of understanding this European funding scheme and all of that is that we're getting coached. There are pitching sessions. All of that is happening. And we're now put in this place where it's like sort of speed dating, right? People come and sit with me for 10, 15 minutes. They speak about the project and they leave. And we're slowly, we're supposed to get used to that. But we had about 15, 20 meetings and subsequently 15, 20 more at Cinemart. But the producers that we found were the first meeting that we ever had, right? The first meeting that we ever had was with Ibrahim Karate from Wrinkle Film. And he just resonated. And he actually, at the end of the 10, 15 minutes, he just said, yeah, okay, I guess let's do this. And I still remember thinking, is this what every European producer is going to tell us? Or is he just being nice to us? Or is it really true? And then that's how that journey started. And I must say, and I'm not just saying our just producers, we have 3 other producers as well involved, with Ankom Badda, Anu Rangachar, and Harman Ventures, and now finally Wrinkle Film. We all managed to find a sort of arrangement in which we could finally support the film, and that was possible only because we learned so much in terms of how the structure of a co-production could work in Rotterdam. And say the Wrinkle Film, for them it's like for them also the first Indian co-production, and we had a lot of interesting moments where we were trying, it's all about work cultures, right, which is so different, and that really comes to the fore when you're trying to mount a film. And but ultimately it's a passion for the film that held us together, but we learned a lot, and they really guided us through that entire process of eventually doing the post there. And the film was graded there with a fantastic studio called the Fever Film, where Arun spent, I think, 3 months in Amsterdam, doing that there. But I just want to clock that, it was that co-production system that we learned there that really put us on the path to make this.
Yeah, I have one thing to add in this. I really think that for us Indian filmmakers, it's not easy to make films by just being an investor. I think it helps hugely when we have a co-production partner and when we have grants, because in India you have no grants, no funding. It's only equity funding and individual funding that comes into play when you produce films. I mean, NFDC at some point had started. They, I think, have restarted. I'm not sure. But I think what is very necessary for Indian independent cinema to sustain would be, for grants and for, support from the government to come up. And that, that happens with Europe. And you learn so much in the process. It's so different from just producing a film individually and against producing a film with a partner. And it's all about collaboration. I mean, you can't be individuals. You have to collaborate to make a great product in the independent space, I think.
So you had a Dutch co-producer then also, correct?
Wrinkle Film, and Rainier Selen and Ivo Karate. And like I mentioned, they were the first meeting we ever had in Utrecht, and they became our co-producers. They are the producers of Rafiki as well, which is a fantastic film. So they really kind of took us through that entire process. And I think Ivo was extremely patient with us, and helped us understand how the system works, and how also I must just candidly say, in our way of production, it's a little more casual, it's a little more simple, and the Dutch, of course, are extremely straight, right? There's a path, there's a line, and you've got to follow that. And we really learned how you could benefit by doing that as well. So, yes, those were.
How big was the shock then that you couldn't continue your festival, because the plan was to do much more festival entries, correct?
Yes. Festivals, yes, we had so Stray Dogs was our sales agent with Nathan Fisher, and they had a really nice layup of festivals, one after the other. And I remember seeing that in February, saying that, man, this is going to be a crazy year. Arun, in fact, just got his passport stamp to go to America for new directors, new films. And just then COVID hit. So it really has cut short the entire thing. But I think, in the larger problems that the world is having, I think you just also have to think that, this is something that of course affects us, there's no doubt. But I also want to look past and say, okay, people are suffering way, way more. So we'll just find a way around this.
Before I give over the microphone to Raman, please let me share the picture of the award. So that's what you got in Rotterdam, correct? The NETPAC Award. What does NETPAC mean, actually?
So NETPAC is basically, it's an award given at a couple of festivals, and NETPAC is an Asian award for the best feature film in that festival.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the best Asian film premiering at that festival.
Understand. Raman.
Yeah. Now I would actually now, because we were talking a lot about international part here, right? So let me add a question related to that. Now, internationally, I mean, there is an image of Indian movies, and it's normally perceived as full of colorful dresses, love, and dancing around the trees. I mean, I've heard this statement a lot of time. Indian movies, oh, dancing around the trees, right? So, but Nasir is, I mean, it's nothing like this image. So how challenging is it to take a chance of making such a different movie for the international audience, where the perception of an Indian movie is something different, and you are serving a completely different dish? So how challenging is it to take that project up?
No, I think the objective here is to tell the story, and to tell the story in as efficient way as you think can be. So when you do that, sometimes you understand that probably the story might not work in the way that your films here with actors and commercially released films with songs. So that has been the tradition, where you actually kind of bring every story that you want to say into a certain form that is prevalent, with a systematic formulaic form. But here we were not dealing with that kind of cinema. We were dealing with a cinema which relates to people, and that is what I'm actually bothered about. It relates to people in different parts of the globe. They could be from Germany, they could be from South India, from North India, they could be in Australia or from the US. I'm sure that the film would actually relate, and this relation is a part of your communication. How much you kind of understand the story that you're trying to say, and how much of communication that you want to do within the image. And once you do this, any film which is for categorization, we might categorize it according like this, like that, but then it is already universal that way. When the image and sound as an experience is highly universal to people, and if you kind of make it quite clear as to what you're communicating through that, then you are naturally transcending borders. Then we have all the other things like subtitles and so many technology which could give them more information in your telling. So I think this universality is something that comes with your storytelling. So what you have to decide actually, what is the right method or tool that I'm going to use for this particular story, and then that thereby creates its own audience.
Yeah, sure. Marty, you were saying something.
Oh, and I actually was also going to say Samir would also have a really good idea, because he's made now two films which are in that space. So I think Samir might add a fair bit in terms of how it is to work with a producer on a film which is against the tide. So Samir, yeah.
I mean, I have worked, I started my career in Bollywood, and I worked for 10 years in Bollywood. Then I started my company, and then it was advertising for the next 10 years. But in those 10 years, suddenly at some point, I got interested in going to festivals. So I started with Cannes, the bug bit me, and then I went to other festivals, and the bug kept biting me harder. And I said, now I want to make different films, and I want to make films that reach out to the world more than be, self-sustained in terms of cinema. So commercial or not, I mean, I think Nasir is a commercial film. And I'm talking about Nasir in the context of also South India, where I think the audience is much more open to non-star films and to subjects that are a little outside of the song and dance, and which is also happening in Bollywood. But I think the trend started in the south of India, in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, and I think people are looking for stories, good stories. I think it's not about, at some point, yes, it is about actors, even now, especially if you want to kind of have a blockbuster, theatrical release also, because you need all that money to sell your film. You see, you need to advertise. We don't have any money to advertise for our film unless there's a big name that comes and gets involved in it. But I still feel that Nasir is a commercial film. And I still feel that it's, we could have a theatrical release for the film, and the audiences would, South Indian audiences especially, would go and look at it.
Sure. Now, I mean, one thing that I have also learned while staying in an international space is that the human emotions are all the same. It doesn't matter whether you can't say these are Indian emotions or these are German emotions or American emotions. Somewhere those core values and emotions are same. And this is the space where this movie hits. And that's, I think, the reason why it connects with everyone whosoever watches this movie. So, yeah, I think you really gave a very perfect answer to that.
But of course, dancing around trees, I think it's a very Indian emotion.
Yes, that's it too as well. Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
another thing
Stefan.
That's the point I always tell everybody, that the classical Bollywood formula, melodrama formula, is an invention of an Indo-German couple, between Himanshu Ray and Franz Osten. They did the Bombay Talkie Studios together, and they did the film with Devika Rani and Ashok Kumar. This was one of in the 1930s, and there they invented the Bollywood formula.
Wow.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Indo-German co-production
Ashok
back then.
Back in the day, yeah.
Wow.
Anyway,
Stefan.
yeah. So now I brought myself out of the concept. No, I want to continue on that festival space a little bit, because there's one reason we ask you now to do the talk with us, because tomorrow you will have the worldwide premiere on the One World Festival. We Are One, a global film festival. Who likes to tell us a little bit more about that?
Arun, after you.
Yeah.
Arun.
So it's been last few months of no screenings, no festivals, and everybody's plans of watching films or traveling and all have gone. But then at this point we found that online screenings are going to be inevitable. You might, even though there might be some security issues and that online screenings are going to be the actual future. So we felt that we should be supporting such an initiative and also reaching out to the audience, because we finally made this story so that the story could be felt in different parts of the world. And if we have to travel to each of these countries individually and show the film, and here there is an opportunity where, like, within a span of 24 hours, you can kind of connect to thousands of people. So it is because of this influx of a huge audience base that we wanted to kind of put the film out for free and also show our solidarity in such an unprecedented time. Even though there are a lot of potential risks in sharing your film this way, you're a new film, and we understood all the risks, and you never know what the future risks are. But then you also want to kind of feel a little committed, to the whole COVID and COVID, collection of these funds and for the festival and all of this. So we feel that we can reach the kind of audience that we actually want the film to be seen. And yeah.
And
yeah, I think when you think of a festival, I mean, at the end of the day, what a festival does is that it galvanizes a group of people together to be able to watch a certain kind of cinema or any kind of, just something. And it's like a big party that people are putting together and say, hey, this is something cool that we have. Now, in these times, there's nothing else. There's no other way to do it. And I think it's important for us to embrace these changes. And there are, of course, a lot of discussions around, is this good for the film? Is it bad? But then we think about it, if we just had to rewind any number of times, I think it would have arrived upon the same decision to do this festival, because also Mami has been, the Mumbai Film Festival, which has nominated us, have been an immense support in trying to take the film, to a lot of the Bollywood, group of celebrities and say, hey, watch the film, talk about it. And it is suddenly, and I don't know, I may be wrong, I just may have my perspective. I feel like suddenly this has given the film a lot more visibility locally than we could have otherwise. So in this time frame, so right now a lot more people are talking about it, and it's sort of done the whole thing of going to Europe, coming to the India, and then coming locally now finally, where I feel like a lot of people in Chennai and everywhere else in Tamil Nadu will, and especially Coimbatore, will finally watch the film. So just sort of embracing this in our stride. And of course, there are a lot of fears, of course, both for investors in terms of will the film make it, will it affect an OTT thing, to a filmmaker thinking my film's going to get pirated and it's just going to be available for free. It's a horrible feeling. But I think all of us are taking a brave step towards this because of the brave collaborators who are there, who are seeing the most optimistic road ahead.
Yeah, just put on here the festival page. So it's running tomorrow. It says 9:30 a.m., but this is This is New York time, correct?
Exactly.
So this means it's 3:30 p.m. In our Berlin time or Germany time, and again in Indian time it's
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
7 p.m. Correct.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I would like to actually add a question to this part here. I mean, one of the two entries from India for a film festival. Yeah. So, and the festival is called VR1. So how proud or how satisfied do you feel with this as an achievement? Mati?
I mean, definitely immensely proud, like of what we've done. Also, every time there is doubt about any of these things, I just rewind back to 2016 December when we, driving down there and to Coimbatore, and where there's nothing, nothing at all except an idea, right? And then from there, for us to travel this far, I think is a phenomenal achievement, and I'm immensely proud, and we're just so happy, I think, to be able to share the film finally. Of course, it's taken a long time, but I think it's just, I think I'm sort of speechless to think about, the impact that it has had on our own lives personally, to have had this journey, to be able to make it. So yes, immensely proud.
So I want to add to this. I think every film has its journey, and some films are more conscious films. If you think as a film as a person, not us producers, not the director, but every film. One of the finest experiences was Life of Pi for me, because I saw for 8 years that the film had a soul of its own, and not all films have a soul of its own. I feel I'm being a little philosophical. I have a feeling that Nasir had a soul of its own and has a soul of its own, and because of that, it has chosen a certain journey, and it's doing well for us. I mean, mistakes we keep making on the way, or choices we keep making, but when the film has a certain journey and an end and a beginning, I think it knows where it's going much more than we do sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, with every project, it can always be better. There is nothing called perfection, so to say. As you said, there are always some mistakes that you do through, and you always think it could have been a little bit better there. It could have been a little bit better here. But I mean, at the end, making it to such a big, prestigious stage, I would say, is kind of a proof in itself that it's an amazing product that has come out. Yeah. With that, I'll give back to Stefan.
I think Arun might have an interesting anecdote there. I think you want to share, Arun, about Dilip Kumar's thing about every story having a soul. I think it's quite interesting. I've always thought about that a lot.
The writer of our short story, he generally believes that the written work is as a living organism. So everybody kind of has, when you read the story or when you feel it, it's like you're actually talking to a person. So that is a feeling that we try to bring in the film also. Like, Nasir is not just written words on this thing. Nasir is a person, and there are in Nasir's world multiple characters, and it's not just a film where, okay, we've finished the film, we've shown the film, and we wanted the character to be with the audience, and to also find his place in the history of cinema, where when we think of characters, or when we think of working class middle-aged characters, we should be able to find his face, and kind of take some solace in being in the act of living with him. So in that case, actually imagining that work as a living organism itself allows you to treat it with a lot of care, and to be very judicious in each step as to why and all that. So it helps, this metaphor.
Yeah, I agree there. And especially, I mean, I still remember the small poetry which is in there in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, these kind of things, they kind of leave an impression on your mind, and you are basically caught up with it. No, it's a very well made movie. Yeah. No, thank you, Stefan. Stefan, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we have to explain the audience, because Samir mentioned Life of Pi. Life of Pi was the Indian part of Life of Pi was shot in Pondicherry, so your hometown. and so you did some groundwork on the shoot in Pondicherry. So that's your connection to Life of Pi, and yeah. So somehow maybe you have the imagination to have seen in Arun and Matti this big soul of this film, correct?
But it was not because of Life of Pi, but I've worked on a lot of movies in my, I've worked on many feature films, and I've seen that each one has its own journey, and some really have choose their own path, and Nasir has, and I can clearly see that, from getting the Hubert Balls Fund and the way it moved, how the producers came in, how interesting partners came in to be a part of it. Wrinkle Films, for example, God Given. Something about the film has been in the right direction, which means it has a soul. I mean, it has a life of its own.
Yeah.
And we learn Arun now, and so yeah, I understand. So how can you resist such a powerful, vibrant soul like Arun? Okay, I will also give the chance to the audience to ask questions. We'll have a look. I just tell it. So if you have any question, put it in the F&R field, the question and answer field. Yeah. And but we will go on, and I will look if there are any questions from outside. Yeah, Raman?
Okay. Yeah, I'll go on with the next question here. So, I mean, one thing which I had in my mind while I was putting down what kind of questions I want to ask. I mean, this is something which came from inside. It's more like the movie represents one day in the life of Nasir. Where the movie is about like one day. How long did it actually take for you to shoot this movie? Was it shot in one day, or did it take longer than that?
I hope it'll be as easy as to shoot it in lifetime in one day, but it took us 20 days to shoot the film, because that was the original plan. We had always scheduled for 20 days, but luckily with a nice team, we had a very efficient team. Our DOP, our sound, and our production designer, they all kind of worked efficiently, planned, including our assistants. It was a very coordinated effort, and we were able to finish exactly on the 20th day. So it took us 20 days to kind of schedule what scenes we'd shoot at which particular place at which time of the day and all of that. So yeah, it took 20 days.
Okay. Yeah. So,
but to get to these 20 days, it was a kind of 3 years wait. You had to plan 20 days from 3 years, right from writing the film to financing, and also to planning the shoot.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, so to say, work behind the curtain that happens to bring it actually into reality. So it's the execution that happened in 20 days. But I think the preparation before that was much longer.
Raman, a film is a film. This is what I say. And now, for example, in advertising or in, they're saying, we want to make a small film. What is a small film? I mean, small films might have lesser money, but the effort is exactly the same thing, because you want to put the same value on the screen as a big film.
Exactly.
You see, the monies are different.
There's an interesting analogy that once Godard was asked, what is the biggest?
Arun, we somehow lost you. Maybe it's your internet connection.
Yeah, you say something about Godard, and then
maybe Matti and Samir can continue now. I don't know what you...
No, Matti, I mean, the effort is the same. Matti produced another film called Nirvana In, which was a little bit of a bigger film. But wasn't the effort the same on both the films?
Yeah, the effort is just different. It's just this is different in different ways, I guess, every time. But yeah, it's a lot of year. I mean, it's a year or more before your final shoot day finally happens. And of course, then there is post. And what I've learned a lot from this entire experience is that after the film is done and you've shown your first screening, that's another journey again. And that's when again, then the festivals, then the showing, and then what all of you are helping us with taking the film out. That's now another journey from there. So the life of a film is, is of course forever, but that cycle is from the idea to the point till it's actually released, past that, and that's a good 3-4 years, and that's crazy to think about. I didn't think about it like that then, but thinking back, yeah, it's pretty insane.
Yeah, I think I always take the analogy of it's something like raising a child. It's an idea that you have, then you see how it grows, how people come along with it, and everybody plays a very important role in bringing it to the final shape. And then how you see it goes towards success. It's something that you get very closely attached with. So yeah, really, really nice from that point of view. I think we have a question in chat. So what he's trying to say is, like, normally there is one person who plays all the roles in independent cinema, but what role does an independent story or a screenwriter have in this parallel cinema line, so to say?
Samir, do you want to go?
I think no. It depends completely on the project. Again, my first film, my second film, Nasir. One person has done many of the roles. On my first film, in fact, Aditya Vikram Sengupta even shot the film cinematographically. So it depends on the talent, on the vision of the film, and Arun, of course, played a couple of roles. I think he was very also. He had a good team that he had worked with before, but he had the role of a writer. But he depended a lot on his cinematographer. Interestingly, the cinematographer also shot the other film that is chosen in the other Indian film, because there were two feature films chosen at We Are One. He shot also the other film called Ibalu, and so depended a lot on his cinematographer and his editor. So I don't think that one person does always all the roles, though he could. So I think it depends on the projects and on the subjects.
And Sandeep, I mean, the answer is yes. I mean, there's definitely, I think, a room for a writer, because finally that's the first, I think, based from there. And this particular film, Nasir, also is from a short story. So I definitely think writers have a great part to play. I think it's just about writers in being able to find good collaborators who are directors or producers that they can work with to be able to action that out. Of course, I'm also selfishly saying this because my wife's a writer, and then she will be very upset if I say otherwise.
So you are safe for today then. No? Yeah. I have a last question. Yeah. So I mean, an award-winning combination here that we have in our call here. So what is next is the question.
So right now, as far as myself, we're definitely working with Arun on his next film, and it's actually the film that he was going to make prior to this, but then this suddenly got in the way. So these are early days, so I'm prepping for another 4 years of doing that. Besides that, the director of Nirvana in as well, the same director as well, working on his. So I mean, to me personally, it's always relationships and seeing whether we can build relationships to more things, because you understand each other, at a very deep point. By the time you make a film, you know a lot about each other. So how can we move forward with that? And specifically, in turn, as a company, we're looking at, we have 2 other producers who are women, and they're mounting women-led films. So this is our mission for the next 3-4 years, at least.
Very nice, very nice. And they always say, never change a winning team. Yeah. So that's why I said that. So, Samir, would you like to say something?
Well, we are. I'm working on a bit more commercial stuff. I'm developing a series on some of the revolutionaries in the revolutionary movement of India against the British. The smaller characters and not the bigger ones. There were fantastic stories about stuff that happened. I mean, of course, there was Veer Savarkar, and there was Subhash Chandra Bose, and there was Gandhi, and there was all of them. But the smaller characters played a huge role in the independence movement for India. So something on that, and something else on music, which has been a passion for me all my life. So yeah.
Sounds very interesting. Yeah, just keep us posted. Yes. And looking forward to that. Yeah. With that, Stefan, back to you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining our live talk. Unfortunately, we can't say goodbye to Arun. Maybe he already he went to New York on one global film festival. So we press thumbs that you win the hearts of the audience of We Are One Global Film Festival tomorrow. Okay.
And please don't pirate the film.
Yeah.
See,
Please don't pirate the film.
No, sure.
Because no, not you. I'm just saying that whoever is, please don't pirate, because that's, I think, a big worry with anything that's happening online.
Yeah.
One of the biggest worries is not showing the film online. It's great, to have online platforms, but I think piracy is a huge issue with these online festivals. And if the platform where the film is being shown is not secure enough, I think there is a lot of piracy that happens.
Yeah.
And that often can spoil the journey of a film. So the appeal is always respect us, at least independent filmmakers, and don't pirate our films.
Exactly.
So we will tell it to the audience. And please,
Okay.
Mati, let us know when the other talk will happen tomorrow at the YouTube festival. Yeah.
Sure.
So that we can post it and let the audience know.
Yeah.
And so
I would actually like to mention it once again for viewers here and listeners as well. The film will run on Saturday, 6th of June at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time for US, which is New York time, 3:30 p.m. Berlin time, which is Germany time, and 7 p.m. Indian time on youtube.com/VR1. So that's the URL, youtube.com/VR1. You can go to this URL and watch this fantastic movie, something that it's not to be missed. Yeah. So my personal recommendation here. Yeah.
Arun is back.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Let's have a last word from him then.
Arun,
Hi, I'm back. Sorry, guys.
what
Yeah,
happened to
there's
you?
some-
You had dinner?
My device just shut off.
Okay.
Just no, I haven't had dinner yet. I'll have later.
Okay, so you have the chance to say the last words, Arun, because we are almost at the end of the session.
Okay.
So you have been interrupted. You wanted to tell us something. Maybe you can complete that at least.
No, I was talking about an interesting analogy in reply to Raman's question, that once Godard was asked what was his biggest problem with television, and he said, for you to make 60 minutes of television, sometimes all you need is 60 minutes. So today, even internet, a lot of videos on the internet and our session itself, you just need this live time to create a certain content, or to probably even tell a story, to use this medium. Every medium has its own, pros and cons. So certain mediums don't lend itself to time like that. The medium of cinema, which I also believe that it's largely a temporal medium, that everything develops with time and in time. So the making of a film is a development which is actually in the maker's mind gone through a large shift of times, different kinds of time. So the time of the writing it and creating it in your head, and then the financing, and the frustrating time of waiting, scheduling, and finding the actors. So in this process, actually, in cinema, you get to interact with people, and then certain relationships are formed. While shooting the film, you go to the same street or to go to a different street, try to relate between two shots from a different space. So in this aspect of dealing with time on an everyday level, you there is a different truth that is to be sought, which is not possible when you work with something that is a very linear in television in 60 seconds or an advertisement, where the time frame is far less, and then the pressure to just deliver in that one performative time is just there. So that is what I was trying to say, actually.
Okay, so again tomorrow at 3:30 German time, 7 p.m. Indian time, we see the online premiere of your film, and maybe you know about the time. If there is a talk, there should be a talk.
Yes, there is a talk with the team of Nasir, the cinematographer Soumyananda Sahi, and Gautam Nair, the sound designer of the film, and Mausam Agarwal, the production designer of the film, and myself. All four of us are getting in a talk from 5 to 6. The details are in our profiles you would have posted. It's an FB Live conversation where we'd be talking more about the film, the actual process of all that. But it'll also be nice for how to know how many people are going to come up, watch our film tomorrow, and it's on the 7th. So I hope to see many of them.
Okay, and it's there for 7 days, correct?
It's there for 24 hours actually.
I know, 24 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it starts at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening for Indians, and then it finishes by the next day.
Okay, great. And please share the information about the talk, because then we will share it with our audience.
Yes.
Definitely, we'll do
Yes,
that.
we'll do.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Arun. Thank you, Samir.
Thank you, Stefan.
Mati.
Thank you, Raman.
Thank you. Yeah, it was.
Round of applause for all of you. And
Yeah, thank you, guys.
hope to see you soon.